He just forgot about me. Left me here to rot.
Hello everyone and welcome back. Today I'd like to review Expedition Zero. It's a survival horror indie from developer Enigmatic Machines out of Prague in Czechia. They were generous enough to grant me a review key, and for that I'd like to thank them. This review is based on a complete playthrough of the game, and all opinions in this review are my own. You're all busy people, so let me answer your most pressing question first. Is this a game you're going to enjoy? The 30-second spiel is that you'll have to deal with cold that can kill you. You'll have to scavenge loot and craft gear to improve your capabilities, because surviving early is actually difficult without that gear. Shadowy enemies will stalk you, and the game does well to play on your vulnerability through its use of darkness and sound. It's a short little game that should take you a few hours to get through if you know how to play it. The mechanics lay a groundwork that could be built on in an expansion or a sequel. If that sounds like something you'd like, then stay with me and I'll go deeper into the details. Expedition Zero is a survival horror game set in a wintry enclave that's been isolated from the rest of the world by a concrete wall and high security towers. But why? Because there's zombies and shadow monsters roaming about. They've killed everybody else, and you're next. But someone offers to let you out.
So you want to get out? There are some ways, but well, let's say they don't come for free.
You only have to
Let's
discover
make a
the
deal.
cause of the trouble
Something
and
has been
destroy
going
it.
on in the
Do you
market
really have a
first.
choice?
You know
It's time
the
to venture
place.
deeper into the enclave and find out what caused this.
Whatever is roaming in the forest, it was strong enough to kill all of the soldiers that arrived there. I will be helping you in identifying the source, but I need samples. Find something that could be traced to that.
I won't go into the plot, so you can discover things for yourself. You'll discover notes from the people who used to live here, and that will clue you into what's happened. If you're familiar with horror stories, you'll probably be able to work out what's been happening, though there is a twist at the end. The game will start you outside a shelter that serves as your home base and introduces you to the mechanics of the game, like looting and crafting. Items you can loot vary in size and weight. Your backpack can only carry so much, but you can use the crafting benches to break them down into metal, polymers and electronics. These are then used to craft different types of items. The first one is the headlamp, and you'll find others throughout the world. The only survival mechanic included is temperature, and as you might expect, if you lose all heat, you lose health and eventually die. But your gear also uses power, and you have a battery that has to be recharged regularly. Luckily, your sled has a charger that will always be available wherever you travel. The world is divided into 4 different maps you can explore, plus a shelter in the wall where you speak to the mysterious figure helping you. The largest map and the first you get access to is the forest. There are abandoned camps and buildings scattered around that you can explore for loot and tools. One of the more important items that you can find is the axe. It's very cold in the forest and you need to take shelter in a tent or building, but sometimes it's too cold and you'll have to start a fire to get warm. That requires firewood that you can find or split with your axe. You can also use it as a melee weapon against the zombies you'll run into. Loot refreshes over time, so scarcity isn't a problem if you're willing to travel. The various locations will also have printers, just like the one you found at the shelter, but they'll have different blueprints you can craft. You can find most of the craftable items around the main camp in the forest, and if you're having trouble, I recommend you watch my guide on how to get them. It's very important to find these, as it makes the game much easier. One of the main early goals is to find what the game calls samples. If you've played Stalker, they're very similar to artifacts, and you can get a locator that tells you how close you are to them.
Yes, that's the sample. I guess the military guys didn't make it. Find me the other ones.
Some are straightforward to grab, but some require a bit of trickery in combat. As you explore, you'll find notes that provide more backstory on what's happened to the people here. Some will give access to the other optional maps that you can explore for loot and tools. All the mechanics in the game are designed to keep you moving, in order to find gear to keep you alive, samples to keep your mysterious guide happy, and enough wood to stave off death from the cold. As you explore, you may hear screeching and rustling in the trees nearby. Don't ignore that. Those are the shadows gathering around you. And when they get near enough, you'll see static artifacts in your vision. Like many horror monsters, they can't be killed permanently, only temporarily dismissed by shooting them with your rifle. You'll find bullets to load the gun you found at the shelter, as well as bandages and meds to heal you when you inevitably take damage. Initially you have no hope of spotting them in the darkness, and later on you'll find gear that will allow you to see into the tree branches, so you can actually stand your ground. But your only recourse early on is to keep moving in order to avoid being tongue lashed or gassed. The game does a very good job of using rustling in the trees and your limited vision to play on your fears and vulnerability early on. You have to weigh the risk of setting out against the cold while keeping an eye on your battery levels. Zombies on the other hand are very simple, and you should have very little trouble dispatching them with your axe. One criticism that could be levied at the game is that it lacks variety in enemies. There is one unique monster you find in one of the optional maps, but other than that, there's only the zombies and the shadow monsters. There's progression with the shadows, from being unable to see them at all early on, to being able to temporarily dismiss them once you get the right gear, but the zombies remain simple and almost pointless. One negative is that the game does feel a bit short once you're familiar enough with the mechanics. This is probably due to a question of funding, so it's understandable. And the end does hint that there might be more to come. So how could it be improved? More of the same will probably not be enough, because the mechanics, enemies and maps are explored pretty well in the game as it currently stands. Just making it longer would feel artificially drawn out. One option would be more variety of enemies. Not bosses, because this is clearly not a combat game, or untouchable enemies. Varying the number of zombies may help them become more of a threat. Maybe have them be more numerous in indoor spaces or underground bunkers, so you have to sneak around them or work out how to distract them. More in different types of gear. This would require a longer game and different types of threats and obstacles, but if that were to happen, then allowing the player a greater variety of equipment would help to keep the experience fresher. There's probably more things that could be done, but Expedition Zero does provide a neat little platform that could be built on in sequels or expansions. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. Let me know what you thought about it in the comments. Feel free to leave a like, subscribe and hit the bell button to be notified when new videos come out. See you soon.